it's not actually going to be productive enough to come to you as fast as I am. But my lecture got cancelled, and I already had my makeup done, so I thought I'd put it to good use. So I'm bringing to you all the books that I read in the month of January, which is so many books, so many more than I had anticipated. So I will say that I'm not going to talk to you about the picture books that I read for work, because I've been trying to get some more picture books read. So if you want a video about the picture books that I'm enjoying, do let me know. But otherwise, I will jump right in, and I will start with the books that I don't have physical copies of at the moment for one reason or another. And first off, this is like my new favorite thing. I don't know if you follow me on any other social media, which you should. This is a shameless self-plug. But I've been very vocal about my love for Samantha Shannon's The Priory of the Orange Tree. So this has been one of my most anticipated books of the year, and I finally got to read it while I was still on winter break, because it's a tome. And let me tell you, it did not disappoint. This is pretty much a feminist-driven high fantasy. So I'm already hooked. It is kind of multiple perspective. First off, you have Ede, who is this undercover spy priory member person who has magical powers and is there to protect the queen in her side of the world. And then you have Tane, I hope that's how you pronounce her name, would be awkward otherwise, who is in the east. She's away from all of that. Their countries don't communicate because of troubles of ages past, and she's training to be a dragon rider. And stuff happens from there on. There's some other perspective that you get at one point, but these are our two main gals that we follow. And we pretty much follow both of their areas of the world, so the east and their water dragons, and the west and everything else, as they are trying to keep it together, because this enemy of ages past, who's like a super dragon, super evil, is about to awaken from his slumber of 1,000 years. So everyone is in danger, and it's great. There is a female-female relationship in this, in case you didn't know, which apparently a lot of people did not. There is a dual binary kind of magic system. There is an ageless witch. There are the ladies of the Priory of the Orange Tree. There's a lot of myth and lore and world building that's super ambitious. There's a lot of diversity. And what else? Let me think. There's so much. There's lady knights. There's lady pirates. There's badass queens. There's some representation of mental illness with the queen, because she's, I want to say, depressed or possibly bipolar. So there's something going on there, and it's just such a lush, rich book, and it's so well written, and all the perspectives are so intriguing and captivating. And also, I think this is the first high fantasy I've read but there's no kind of attacks on women for being women or on any other kind of marginalized people, and it's just blowing my mind that I've lived my life so long expecting those things in stories, and especially in high fantasy. We then have The Sleeper and The Spindle by Neil Gaiman with illustrations by Chris Rodell, and this was kind of big on BookTube a while ago, and it's a story inspired by fairy tales, kind of, about this queen that's kind of Snow White that leaves her kingdom to go across the mountain to this other kingdom that's being taken over by a sleeping sickness. There's an evil witch, there's stuff. I felt like this had a lot of potential, and it did have a lot of elements that I did like. I love Chris Riddell's illustration style, I love Neil Gaiman, and I really like that twist on fairy tale elements. I think that's very on brand for me. So it was made for me, but eventually it just kind of fell flat because it's super short, so it doesn't go as in-depth into anything as I would have liked it to. But it was still, you know, a solid read, solid. I also read In Search of Mary Shelley, the girl who wrote Frankenstein by Fiona Sanderson, and that's a Mary Shelley biography. I thought it was one of the better biographies that I've read. I thought that the author got very engaged into her subject, and she didn't have a clinical kind of detached writing style, which I hate when it happens in nonfiction. So it was very good to feel that she cared, and I did think this was full of information about Mary Shelley and her pals. But I didn't quite like something about the writing. I thought that the pacing was very odd, and it felt odd to me to see which things she decided to give more narrative focus to, and which she just kind of brushed aside and only mentioned in passing. But overall, if you're into Mary Shelley and are curious, I do recommend the biography. I also read The Monk by Matthew Gregory Lewis, and this was for my modern English module, and it's one of those, iconic Gothic novels pretty much about a monk that's supposed to be the most pious and religious and saintly person, but he's real rotten inside. So there's a lot of incest and death and murder and rape and pregnancy and a revived dead nun at some point. It's a lot. It's not one of the worst books that I've read. It's not one of the best. I think you can tell it was written by a real shady 19, 20-year-old whatever back in the day, but it was quite entertaining and atmospheric and pretty smart. So, and then I got really sick and I was very miserable to be back in college. So I went to something light and fluffy, and what else than Jennifer E. Smith for that? So I got the Statistical Probability of Love at First Sight out from the library, and this is about a girl who misses her flight from the States to the UK for her dad's wedding by 4 minutes, and while she waits in the airport for the next one, she meets a very handsome Englishman who's also flying to the UK, and they bond, and it is adorable, and I love Jennifer E. Smith, and it does that thing where it's just got you grinning and giggling to yourself like an absolute imbecile high on painkillers and antibiotics. But it also, while it's doing that, eventually it turns everything upside down and brings much more depth to the story and the characters. So there is a nice balance and a nice mix. It didn't blow me away, but it did bring a lot of comfort to me in my time of need. So I really liked it. And I read Art Matters Because Your Imagination Can Change the World, and that's also some wisdom by Neil Gaiman with illustrations by Chris Riddell. I think together those are just very powerful. This was real short, nice, inspirational little read. It's not mind-blowing, but real cute. And now for the things that I have actual physical copies of, because this is already long and I haven't even shown you a book. I read A Vindication of the Rights of Woman by Mary Wollstonecraft, who is one of the first real big feminists and also Mary Shelley's mother. Can you see a theme? I thought this was good. It didn't blow my mind away. I thought it was a bit outdated and simplistic, but I can really appreciate a lot of the ideas that she had in this. And it was a fairly engaging read. So if you're into feminist nonfiction, not a bad one. And then my friend Rachel and I were going to Edinburgh for my birthday for just one day, so I wanted something to really get me in that mood, and who better than V. Schwab and City of Ghosts. This is a middle grade book about a girl called Cassidy who can see ghosts. She had a near-death experience, and so she started seeing ghosts ever since then. Her best friend saved her in that instance, and they've been best pals ever since, except he's also a ghost. So a super sweet and original and heartwarming and spooky. Her parents are ghost hunters, so for the summer they get offered a TV show deal type thing, and the family moves to Edinburgh to film the first episode of the show, and it is just wonderful. I think V. Schwab kind of wrote this partly as a love letter to the city, and it's so atmospheric and really evocative and puts you right there. Yeah, it was funny to read this first and see the city second, because the city came alive as I was reading, and then kind of as I was exploring the city, the book just kind of came back to me. So it was very interesting. as a duo of experiences. I thought this had a lot of depth that I didn't quite expect since it was middle grade. Should have known better because V Shop always delivers as far as I'm concerned. The ghost magic system thing, it was a lot better than I thought it could be. She could have been really simplistic with it and just kind of taken it at face value. But no, V Shop made it harder for herself and created this whole system about how the veil functions and how there's a difference about how Cassidy calls things and how maybe other people that have similar experience do. There's a really spooky lady that's out to get her, so it's a really interesting villain. And there's just so much depth, and I did not expect to love it this much, but it stole my heart away, and I'm dying for the second volume. And then another one of my most anticipated reads for the year that's out in April, and it is Other Words for Smoke by Sarah Maria Griffin. I was lucky enough that someone I kind of work with knew I wanted a copy of this, and so she very kindly sent me this, which I'm still very touched. So this is written by one of my favorite authors / people. If you don't follow Sarah online, please do yourself a favor and do. She's wonderful. She's glorious. I have not enough words of praise. But anyway, the book basically follows a set of twins who go into the Irish countryside to live with their dad's aunt or great aunt or something, and stuff happens. So it starts with them being collected from the house after a fire, and you know that the aunt is missing, there's another girl missing, and then it goes back to the summer where they first came to the house, and then vignettes of other summers since, and then it comes back to the summer of the fire and everything that happened. So the way the story is told is super unique. Sarah's writing style is one of my favorites. There's just something about it that pulls you in. It's very atmospheric and, again, evocative. It sets the tone and then it just kind of seeps into your bones. And it's like a really rich cup of tea in book form. This is pretty much a story about love and fear and courage and family and magic. It's like, if you wrote a book for me, this would be it. There's also a female couple in here. There are so many witches. It's kind of a generational novel because you have the aunt who's like a witch woman. You have the girl twin who's kind of her new protege. You have the other girl who she's been taking care of because her mother just kind of got up and left, and they're not family, but they're kind of family. So I don't even know how to describe this book because it's so unique and unlike anything else that I've read, but it's just beautiful. So if you like beautiful writing, if you like kind of magical realism, this is the one for you. If you like Neil Gaiman or Holly Black or Moira Fowley-Doyle, you would love this. It's for you. It was made for you. It's beautiful and you need it. And out in April again. And then, because I just needed more spooks in my life, you know, I finally read The Haunting of Hill House by Shirley Jackson. The TV show is my favorite TV show, so I really wanted to read the book despite knowing that they would be very different. And they are very different. I didn't think anything really got kept from this story into the adaptation, and yet I still love the adaptation more, even though I do appreciate this as a story. So the book, The Haunting of Hill House, pretty much follows this random group of strangers as they're meeting at Hill House on the invitation of a doctor who's rented out because he wants to do a study about like the effects of the supernatural in the human mind or some shit. He's like a doctor but real obsessed with spooks, you know, which is fair. And it's pretty much also atmospheric, suspenseful, keeping you on the edge of your seat. And you're mostly seeing this all through this perspective of Eleanor Vance, who's one of the ladies that has been invited because she had a kind of paranormally type experience when she was a child. And she's got a tough life and she's got a lot on her plate, so Hill House is almost like a holiday to her, despite it being so spooky and haunted and all that. I did think that the writing style was great. It just pulled you in and also set the scene very nicely. And I did appreciate Eleanor as a character, but I didn't really think we got the sense of who any of the other ones were, to be honest. And also, I don't think anything really got explained or resolved, which I guess could be a stylistic choice, but I didn't really appreciate that. I wish we would have seen more of everything unravel and more of Hill House, like, why is everything happening? We're all just making assumptions, but what is the truth? And I don't know. I feel like eventually it just kind of fell flat for me, but it was still a good book, if you get me. And finally, I read The Lady's Guide to Petticoats and Piracy by Mackenzie Lee. This is the sequel / companion novel to The Gentleman's Guide to Vice and Virtue, which is very big on BookTube. And this actually follows the sister of the protagonist of the first one, Felicity. I love her. And she's just this feisty INTJ type of lady who wants to become a doctor despite the mentality of the time. So it's really rough for her, and she somehow ends up in poor company trying to find this one doctor that she idolizes, and she thinks he could take her on a mission. She makes some new friends along the way. She rekindles the spark with some old friends, and it's a lot of fun. So overall, I really love this book. I love having a feminist, asexual, badass protagonist. So I really identified a lot with Felicity on a lot of levels, but ultimately there was just something that didn't quite do it for me. Just like with Gentleman's Guide, it was like it was going places and it was going places and it was going places, but it never really got there. You know what I mean? So I understand that it's a lot about the journey internally and externally for Felicity, but her feminism is so exclusionary at times. I don't like the way she really talks about her old best friend who is plus size and traditionally feminine. I think a lot of her comments just rub me the wrong way and can almost come across as fatphobic. I haven't seen anyone else have those concerns on Goodreads, but they really left a sour taste in my mouth. And I thought her feminism was very much like, oh my god, you can't like girly things, blah blah blah. And that did get resolved, and she did come to understand that just because other women aren't like her, it doesn't mean that they're lesser for that reason. So there was growth, and I really appreciated that. And I loved the core ideas of feminism and female friendship and the way all these wonderful ladies functioned as a system. But I don't know, there was just something. So I do recommend this book if you're curious, but I'm still a bit weary. And that has been everything that I have read in the month of January. That was a really promising start to the year. I think both in terms of quantity and quality, I feel like I'm a bit more in control of my life, just a tad. So you might hopefully be seeing me again soon. Do let me know, please, if you have any video suggestions for me to do. And I have been Gabbie, and I will see you in my next one.